Hello everybody and welcome to another Brother Crypt video. Today I really wanted to, discuss the process of ICOs. The purpose of this video is to give you some tips and tricks about ICO investing, as this is what I've been doing for at least 6 months of this year so far. I often get asked the question, what do you think about this ICO? What do you think about that ICO? Have you checked out this? Have you checked out that? And my answer is always the same, what did your research show? What have you found out? What are your thoughts? I always put it back to the person. The reason that I do this is because, I feel a lot of people run around basically like headless chickens, Everybody these days has an opinion, including me. That's why I've created this YouTube channel. But I find that a lot of people that I speak to who are invested into cryptocurrencies and who also invest into ICOs, they just really base their decision to get into an ICO because of another influencer, whether it be Superman, whether it be Ian Bellina, whether it be, somebody like Mike Myers. Other people tend to base their own decision on what this person says, and then they go into it. And it scares me that they do no research of their own. So, based on this, I thought I'd create a video, share it with the audience. Hopefully, it will enable you to improve your ICO game. But before we get into that, let's just quickly look at the markets. Okay, so the time now in the UK is 8:26. It's getting quite late here, and the market has just been tumbling. We can see that we have a market capitalization of 269 billion, and Bitcoin is just on the decline. It's lost about 4.8% in the last 24 hours. And some of the altcoins are just taking a slaughtering. So NEO is reduced by 11%. That's an all-time low of $37. And then we've got NEM sitting at around 18 cents. Looking at Binance is holding its price quite well. It's dropped by about 6%. And Zilliqa's lost around about 11% as well. So yeah, there's still carnage on the streets. I think since my last video, it looks like we've dropped in market capitalization, but it's all good. It's just the game that we're in, and we can see that the BTC dominance has increased to about 40%. I think it was in the upper 30s last time I created the video. So basically, it looks like people are pulling out their money from a lot of the altcoins and going into Bitcoin. And perhaps instead of Bitcoin, they're just holding Bitcoin, waiting for a better price. These days, my friends, they sound like carnage, but there are opportunity. When I see prices like this, I'm always thinking, how can I get more cash to buy any coins? I haven't recently because, I've been invested into about 3 or 4 ICOs in June alone, and we're not even 2 weeks in. So I don't necessarily have any cash for me to be getting into any new positions. My rationale is, when I look at these carnages, I tell myself I'm never selling at a loss. And in fact, I'm quite narcissistic. I want to get the best possible prices for my cryptocurrencies. And sometimes my mind is back in October, November, December 2017. I want to sell my cryptocurrencies at all-time high prices. So yeah, I never sell at a loss. My preference would be to take cash that I have and invest that into cryptos instead. Okay, but we'll talk about this later on. Now, I created a presentation for you, so it will just help me, deliver some of the content in a sort of structured framework. Without any further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay, so Why invest in ICOs? You know, I believe, the best way, why, excuse me, tongue tied. So why do we invest in ICOs? In my opinion, it's the best way to secure coins and or tokens initially at the cheapest price. And yes, that does have caveats because some tokens right now that you'll see on CoinMarketCap might be cheaper than the ICO price. So if you're on the sidelines, you should be buying them up if you have the ability. However, in a bull market, that doesn't necessarily work. Or if the coin is in high demand, initially, after its ICO, when it gets onto an exchange, you usually see an influx and then you see the price crashing down. However, if you wait to always get coins on an exchange, you stand the risk of, paying for the coins at the highest price. The second point I wanted to state is that, another reason why I invest in ICOs is to obtain an understanding of the project, the team, and then the community before the tokens or coins hit the market. Now, this is very important, which I'll carry on later. In the process of you researching into ICOs, you really should be assessing the project, assessing the team, perhaps being aware of any competitors and, gauging what their community's like. Because sometimes a community might make or break the ICO. It's not just necessarily about the technology. So these are all important factors. And by you getting into the ICO early, doing your due diligence, doing your research, then you're able to find out these things. So sometimes you might not be able to get into an ICO, but if you've done your due diligence before, you've researched the team, you know about the community, you know about the fundamental technology that this project has to offer, that actually puts you in a good place so that when it does come to the exchange, you know that this is a coin. You perhaps tried to get in on the ICO, you were unsuccessful, so therefore you're able to buy it up. And perhaps you should be aware of the ICO price so that you pay a fair amount. Probably the best thing to do is wait for the long haul if you want to buy the exchange, if you want to buy from an exchange later on. And, there are more reasons why I invest into ICOs, but I just wanted to keep it light. So the third point is, by you getting into an ICO and you buying at the cheapest possible price, caveat, depends on the market, your position, your investment into that ICO has a potential to grow in a ludicrous, ridiculous amount. So, for example, I'm hearing that a lot of people who got into the Icon ICO in September last year, at the height of the Bitcoin and the market capitalization at the height in mid-December, I heard that, if you had got into Icon, you would have probably made 100x in the space of 3 months. You can't get those crazy returns anywhere else. But then again, you can't necessarily just be speculating and throwing your money everywhere at all of the projects, hoping that one of them will boom. So it goes back to the point that I was saying early. If you get in to the ICO early, in terms of if you're doing your research and if you're familiar with the project early, then you can assess it before it gets to the market. Okay, so those are some of the reasons, why I invest into ICOs. The next point, right, how to find out about new ICOs. Now, I was thinking about this, that, with some of the questions that I get asked, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? It just feels like people are reacting to what they've been told. And because they're reacting to what they've been told, they don't necessarily have a process. And if you go into business, or if you go into any investment and you don't have a process, basically you're gambling, you're throwing money away. Me, out here, I'm trying to apply what I've learned in my software testing career, and also more recently, what I've learned as a property investor, and now I'm applying that into my investments into cryptocurrency. So one of the things that I found is that by going to blockchain and cryptocurrency networking events, that has opened up opportunities. I've created relationships, and by having those relationships, opportunities have been presented to me that wouldn't have necessarily been presented to me before. Okay, so one example is, yeah, I'll tell you this, is getting into Ian Bellina's private party here in London. I don't know Ian from Adam prior to meeting him in London, but because I invested in the Lending Block ICO, I knew some of the guys at Lending Block, and as well as investing into their ICO, I also attended their pre-sale drinks and networking event that they held. So therefore, I was able to meet them on a face-to-face basis, show my face, tell them my name, and then meet them and ask them questions and get to know them. And by developing a relationship with them, when Ian Bellina came to London a few weeks later, and I found out that he was having a party, I suspected that the guys from Lending Block might be attending. So because I've got some of their contact details, I was in touch. And because I got in touch, they told me details about the party, where it was at, and how I could get into the party. And then because of that, I was able to expand my network further. And so because of me expanding my network, I'm now looking at potential opportunities in terms of new ICOs that will be coming to me, in terms of getting allocations, in terms of perhaps joining people on some of their allocations. And this has just worked beautifully for me. However, if I didn't really take an effort to network, and if I stayed in my office or if I stayed at home and just worked from my computer, those opportunities wouldn't have been presented. Moving on, another thing that you can do to get a wind of what new ICOs are happening is to follow some of the big investment firms who are in the business, who are in cryptocurrency, who are investing in blockchain. Follow those firms on their social media, perhaps join their mailing list and look at the information that they send to you. Because, some of these larger investment firms, venture capitalists, whatever you want to call them, some of them are at the forefront in investing, and usually they know about ICOs before we do. So if you get into their slipstream and if you start to follow them, then you might be made aware of some information that you didn't, and then some of the biggest firms that I keep hearing about are Pantera and also Fembushi Capital. And then you've also got Blockchain Capital as well. All right. Now, another tactic that we can use to find out about ICOs, there's a plethora of websites. You can use websites such as ICO Alerts, ICO Drops, and also ICO Hotlist. However, if you do a Google search, there are so many websites, but you can find the best ones for you. And guys, if you're finding this helpful, please hit the likes. Get me more likes so that this information can be shared. And also, if you are finding this helpful, please leave me a comment so that I know that this is helpful. Let me know perhaps what you would like me to concentrate on. And then if you've got any input that you would like to add to this conversation, please drop it in the comments below. Okay. Now, moving on. Things you should consider to succeed at ICOs. Budget and allocation. Right. So as I approached into 2018, we're rewinding. We're going back towards the end of 2017. As I approached into 2018, I stated to myself that I want to invest a specific amount in cryptocurrency, at least for 2018. And then after 2018, I want to review that based on 12 months worth of investing. What I did was I calculated out of my income, how much do I have disposable that I can put into cryptocurrency, um, and I don't need that back. And then I received a figure, and that figure I can take away every month. I can claw it from my salary or from my business. And then I can put that into cryptocurrency. So I'm suggesting this so that you can sort of start to think consistently about what you can afford to invest into ICOs. It may not even necessarily be ICOs. You know, you might just want to invest into Bitcoin or into some of the top 10 cryptocurrencies. And that's all right. You know, you can still apply the same tactic of having a specific budget for maybe a week, but certainly every month when you get paid, or perhaps on a yearly basis. You know, you can calculate, well, how much money do you have in your savings that you would like to put into crypto? And then it all starts there, and then you can just buy when you can. However, this presentation is about ICOs, and usually this is what I do. If there are no hot ICOs that I can invest in, then I will take that money and then I will increase my position in certain coins, meaning I might buy more Dash, I might buy more Ethereum, I might buy more Bitcoin, and then just hold them. Some of my favorite top 30 coins I will buy, and then, you know, the rest I'm willing to sort of take a calculated speculative approach and invest in what I find are strong ICOs. Okay, the next point. What industry or project or platform to invest in? Right, reading that might not make sense to you. But if you know, check out websites like ICO Hot List, you see that there are so many different types of ICOs, and then they're all broken down into different categories. So for example, you might have data service, you might have like DApp, you might have finance, you might have trading, you might have gaming, you might have energy, you might have verification, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. I would say you should really always play to your strengths or your interests. Okay, so for me, looking back at some of my successful investments over the year, I found that my investments in blockchain have multiplied the most. They've multiplied the biggest. So that doesn't necessarily mean to say that, you know, I'm talking about getting into an ICO early on, but some of the coins that I got just after ICO, I still hold a majority of them today, and then they have grown exponentially. So I think I've mentioned this before, but you know, I picked up Dash, and I think I paid about £70 for a handful of Dash, maybe about 5 tokens today, which meant that I picked you know, one Dash up for something like between 12 to 17 pounds off the top of my head. Even today's market, you're not seeing Dash for less than 300, maybe like 290 or something, but that has grown with noughts on it. That has just grown so much, and I hold it today, and literally, you know, £70 has turned into thousands of pounds, you know. And then since then, I've just kept on buying more and more, slightly at a higher price, but then it's increased in its values. So one of the reasons why at the time why I got into Dash was because Dash was compared against Bitcoin. At the time, you know, we were told that, oh yeah, Bitcoin, public ledger, can't be corrupted, relatively private. But then when Dash came along, at the time, which was called Darkcoin, it was basically said that you can send transactions privately. Nobody conceded blockchain. You know, this is gonna be used to have dark transactions that can't be seen. And you know, in the time of the NSA Edward Snowden revelations, I thought that that was a brilliant buy, and then I bought some. So, you know, fast forward to today, 2018. I've invested in quite a few ICOs, but looking back now, I can see that it's mainly the blockchain ones that have served me well. So my strategy is to concentrate mainly on blockchains or things that add value, such as perhaps protocols or data services. You know, things that are gonna be underpinning the the infrastructure, the whole of the market, you know. So basically, you do not have to follow the same thing that I'm doing, you know, because you might be, you might be an accountant and you might have experience of using financial systems for accountancy. So if you come across an ICO and it's actually a DApp, and you think, actually, that does a similar service to some of the software tools that I use now. However, it's on the blockchain, and because it's on the blockchain, and because I could use it, you know, you should invest in it if that's what you think. But basically, I think that instead of having a scattergun approach and just investing into anything and everything, you really should be concentrating your forces and think about what industries do you want to get into. Because if you are investing in a particular industry, you'll be amazed at how much information or how many people will value the information that you deem by learning about what's going on in financial decentralized applications that are having ICOs. If you focus on this niche, believe me, it will be valuable to you in 3 to 6 months, maybe even a year or two. You would have gained so much information. And it's always the knowledge, you know, that is true wealth. It's not necessarily how much you invest or what you've invested in. Really, what is going to make you money is what you know, and by taking action on what you know. Just remember that, please. Right. Another thing that you should consider, which is similar to what I touched on in point one, is only invest in what you can afford to lose. Now, unfortunately, still to this day, ICOs is an unregulated space, meaning that there are scammers out there. And AKA, that means that there are people who want to separate you from your hard-earned money, which has turned into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin or ETH. There are some nefarious people out there. So be careful and make sure you only invest into what you can lose. Now, another reason I say this is because if you don't have any disposable money, which you feel that you need to get back in a short amount of time, whether it's, you know, 1 week or a month or 2 months or 3 months, then honestly, my opinion is you should not be investing into ICOs, because if you need that money, you could potentially invest it and you could pull it out or sell it before it's matured. Now, bear in mind, I'm not necessarily talking about flippers, because even in ICO investing, we have people who just buy into ICOs and they are looking to flip it. I'm really talking about, you know, having a bit more of a medium to long-term perspective, because I believe if you do pick your projects well, that is ultimately what will serve you. If you can wait perhaps a minimum of 6 months to a year before you can consider selling it, that will sell you in the long term. Okay, so this is why you should only invest what you can afford to lose, because you're not gonna need that money back. Now, the next point, disintermediation and disruption is the key. Oh, I think I've got the wording back to front, but you know what I mean. Disintermediation and disruption is key. Basically, what does this mean? Okay, now, when you're investing into ICOs and you're looking to projects, you really should be looking at projects which are gonna bring about disruption. You know, Sorry for using the example of Dash, but when I did get those coins relatively new after Dash had been bought, Dash Dash was a disruptor. Bitcoin was a disruptor already, but Dash, aka Darkcoin at the time, that was a disruptor because there was nothing else like it. It was one of the first privacy coins which couldn't necessarily be read easily. Okay, now another project that I've been looking at, which I think fulfills the criteria of disruption and disintermediation, is this project called Ternio. Okay, now what is Ternio? Ternio is deemed to be one of the fastest blockchains, capable of over 1 million transactions per second. It's decentralized and it has an on-chain as well. Now, how Ternio are going to work is that they have an advertising algorithm or lexicon, and they want to use that to disrupt $224 billion per year digital advertising market through a multi-faced approach. So basically, how Ternio have explained it in one of their presentations is that currently, when BMW calls up the Wall Street Journal, when BMW wants to advertise on the Wall Street Journal, they do not speak to the Wall Street Journal. They go through a string of intermediaries who give them a price and who give them a quote. Basically, between BMW and the Wall Street Journals, between you seeing the new 8 series advertised on the Wall Street Journals, there are perhaps somewhere between a minimum of 2 to 3, maybe more intermediaries who are all middlemen who mark up those adverts. So basically, people like BMW, they don't even know how much the Wall Street Journal is getting for adverts placed in their publication, because middlemen deal with the industry and basically they hold the keys. So being able to use the Ternio platform as they're currently designing it, means that you'll have a platform where people can just put on their bids, and then once they put on their bids, then you can have advertisers buy in directly from people who have that advertising space on their platform, or on their publication, should I say. So therefore, you're cutting out the middleman. And in my opinion, this is what blockchain technology and cryptocurrency should be about. It's about getting rid of the middlemen. It's about disintermediation. And I think those are often critical and important words that people think about. Now, this was one of the first words that I heard about Bitcoin, is that it disintermediates. It gets rid of the middleman, because with Bitcoin, there might not be a need for your bank anymore, or there might not even be a need for a central bank. You have independent financial sovereignty, and because of the algorithms and the mathematics, Bitcoin has what's the word I'm looking for? Bitcoin is limited. It's limited inside, but as well as it being limited, there's no middleman. There's no person that you need to call up in a call center to ask about transactions. So the one of the beauty about Bitcoin is disintermediation as well. And then in some ways, we can say that Ethereum has now disrupted venture capital, and it's disrupted how companies raise money. More money was raised through ICOs, perhaps using Ethereum, than the traditional sort of venture capital model where companies pitch to VCs or sharks. You know, for anybody that watches Shark Tanks, people don't need to necessarily go through that process anymore. So Ethereum has been very successful for disrupting, you know, how fundraising is done. And this is why I think Ethereum deserves its valuation as the second to number, as a number two biggest cryptocurrency. Okay. So I hope you were able to understand that point. Disintermediation and disruption is key. So think about this when you are looking at ICOs. Is this going to change the landscape as it is? Is it going to disrupt? Does it have the potential to disrupt the current status quo? Does the team also, you need to take into factor other considerations as well as the team, but you know, ideas are a dime a dozen. People are having so many ideas. The thing is, we're seeing ideas now where people are saying, oh yeah, I want to put this game on a blockchain. And just because the game is on the blockchain, it's going to be revolutionary. Nah, your console, your PS4 can probably process games faster than it being on the blockchain. So why does it need to be there? It doesn't. It's a stupid idea. Now, if you're going to have disintermediation, which is going to, you know, utilize trustless parties, now you're talking. Now your idea deserves to be on the blockchain. So really, those are things that you should think about when you're considering ICOs. Another point is that, you know, you are in control of what you research. However, you only control your entry or your exit, and that's all you have control on. So just be prepared with this, because some people actually think that because they're they're holding a big position of Ethereum, that they actually have a say in how it's developed. No, that's far from the truth. You don't. When you buy at an ICO and you get coins or token in exchange for your investment, that is it. You don't have any equity. You don't have any shareholders' rights. So make sure you're familiar with the difference between an IPO, initial public offering, and an IPO, initial coin offering, because you have less privileges, you have less rights, but at the same time, in my opinion, you have a bigger opportunity to be able to expand your income if that's what you're here for, okay? Now, my second to last point, be prepared to wait and hodl for 6 months. I think this reinforces, you know, what I was talking about in my previous point, saying only invest what you can afford to lose. I see so many people buying high and selling low because they feel that they need the money quickly. Like I said, if you can't necessarily afford to wait for 6 months or a year, in my opinion, I don't think you should be investing into ICOs. You need to be prepared to take a loss in your investment, and it will take you a while to get your psyche ready to this, because sometimes when I got into an ICO and then the coin hit the exchange, it tanked. You know, I invested in MobiLink, which was a coin recently that I invested in. The price has just gone to smithereens. I think I've lost like something like, it might even be 50%, you know, I've lost. However, they have not necessarily rolled out some of their SIM cards yet. So I'm thinking, you know, I'll just give them as long as it takes. Perhaps at the end of, like I said earlier, I want to wait until the end of the year to review everything, you know. So that's just my point. Be prepared to wait and hodl for at least a few months. When I met Ian Bellina, one of the things that he was talking about over dinner is that he has kept the majority of his crypto, bar his hack, but he has held on to it. He's only taken, you know, profits when he can, just to be able to function, but the majority of it he wants to keep for the long haul. And Ian, when I saw him, I think he had invested into about 90 ICOs at the time. that's a huge amount of different cryptocurrencies to be invested in. But he's invested into so many ICOs, and the majority of them he keeps. So, that says something. Now, obviously, you don't necessarily want to take these things. I'm just giving you food for thought, things that you haven't considered before. So if you haven't considered these before, please do. And if you're inspired to have more thoughts, then please, follow your intuition. But the thing is that I'm compiling this because I don't think enough people have given it thought. And lastly, my last point on this is I keep hearing the saying that 90 to 95% of projects won't be around in 5 years. So why I'm saying this is think carefully of what you're investing in, especially if it's going to be the long term. How good is the team? What's their track record? How likely is this going to be around in the future? And just be aware of this because, sometimes if a project is turning after you've given it a set amount, then you should just be prepared to sell it at a loss, unfortunately, if you've made a loss. But hopefully, you'll sell it at a break-even price. So just bear that in mind, that not all projects we see will be around in 5 years. So I don't necessarily think it's a good idea to invest into an ICO. You get your tokens and then you think about it and then you forget about it for a few years. You should, be tracking that ICO, its progress, be involved with the news, and you should have a picture of what they're doing. And maybe, you give them a set amount of time, usually maybe 1 year. This is why you need to do your research. This is why you need to check the white paper. This is why you need to check the timeline. But once you have checked those, give the team a little bit to sort of, manifest their vision, for them to come to market, for them to come to light. And then if they don't succeed, then, be prepared for you to sell your position. Okay? Now moving on. The next thing I wanted to cover is tools to succeed in ICOs. So basically, I just wanted to compile a few things I think you will need for you to be prepared when an ICO is ready. Earlier I mentioned that perhaps you should have either a weekly or most likely a monthly allocation for how much cash you want to turn into crypto for you to invest into ICOs. Well, this is what I think you should do. I think you should have Ethereum and Bitcoin ready. Usually if you have these two, you're going to be fine. Most ICOs want Ethereum. However, there are some ICOs that take Bitcoin. So if you have, those two specifically ready to invest into ICOs, then that's going to save your preparation time. You don't necessarily need to mess about on an exchange. You don't need to get the Ethereum at last minutes. Because one of the things that I found is that all of the prep, sometimes ICOs are drawn out. You join the Telegram group and then you find out that they haven't set a date for the ICO. You're in the Telegram group for 3 months. You're not necessarily checking it every day. And then you check it, you get a pinned post, come up to your phone saying that your ICO finishes tomorrow. And then, luckily, hopefully you've done your KYC. If you have done your KYC, then you're proceeding. If time's against you, the last thing you want to be doing is exchanging, cash into Bitcoin or Ethereum. And then, for example, for me, usually my process is that I have to take my cash and then I have to buy Bitcoin. And then when I buy Bitcoin, and then I need to exchange it into Ethereum. And then it's ready for ICOs. So one of the things that I discovered this month is that, I'm going to have bulk Ethereum at hand so that every month I'm just ready to get into ICOs so I can save my time. Now, the second point is organization is key. Keep yourself organized. For you to succeed into an ICO, you should track important dates like the pre-sale, like maybe private sale, like maybe main sale, maybe KYC dates. You should be tracking these into a calendar for your cryptocurrency. And another thing that you should have is you should have your own spreadsheet as well. So I formulated a spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet, helps me to analyze all of the ICOs that I want to get into. Currently now, I'm at 102 ICOs that I've reviewed this year alone. And it's actually probably more than 120 because it's gotten so big, I've just had to delete some of the crappiest ones that I don't need. But basically, I have a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet says the name of the ICO, what sort of category it's in, whether it's cloud computing, whether it's currency, whether it's blockchain, perhaps the algorithm, is it a fork, is it a SHA-256, whatever, am I going to invest or not, what's the reason for my choice, the date I tracked it, the ICO start, perhaps the time as well, the end date, is there an opportunity for me to get in, have I read the white paper, is there a prototype, is there an MVP, what are the team like, what's the total supply, what's the hard cap, what's the social, and amount that I want to invest in, and the amount that I've invested in dollars as well, so I can track everything. Because when you're dealing with ICOs, you're processing so much data that you want to have it written down. One, for two reasons: for you to track your progress; two, for you to track your profits; three, I think the most important thing in you being successful in anything is the process that you create. And by you having a spreadsheet, you're creating a process. Because Ian Bellina, we see him, he has a spreadsheet. If you follow the Gob one as well, he has a spreadsheet. So many ICO investors, they all have their spreadsheet. But me using somebody else's spreadsheet is not going to be something I'm comfortable with. So I want to create my own parameters, and I want to have my own spreadsheet, okay? And then also, for you to keep organized, you really should be setting alarms as well. So I mentioned, yes, put these dates and times in your calendars, but make sure you set alarms on your calendar as well, so you get reminded, oh, I need to, the whitelisting for this ICO starts on this day. You better get to it straight away, because sometimes when it comes to KYC, that's know your customer, the process of you giving your passport and your addresses for you to be whitelisted, those usually starts on particular times. So you want to be there as soon as possible. One of the ICOs I was looking at, I was meant to do that. But unfortunately, I couldn't do it, so I missed out on the ICO. What was it now? What was it? There was an ICO I wanted to get into, and then I just couldn't, because at the time their website didn't work, so it didn't accept my KYC. I believe it might have been UseChain, actually. I think it was UseChain or UChain. I think it was one of the two. I had everything. I had the dates, times all set up, and then went to their site at the time, and then their website had crashed. And then, in the subsequent days, I didn't get back into it. But hey, you miss some, you lose some. The next point is, for you to get organized, believe me, it's better that you have a hardware wallet, one that you can comfortably take with you. Perhaps you can access, if you're going to work or you're at home. Use a hard wallet. You do not want to have your private keys in a document and leave the document at home, or have the private keys on a cloud service somewhere online. That is, you're just going to set yourself up to be a target, and you have the potential of being hacked. So if you're going to be getting into ICOs, first step is you really should be buying a hardware wallet, and it's only £90. You know, £90 in the UK, maybe like 120 in the US. You know, that's a small investment for your peace of mind and your well-being. And you know, another thing I think is for you to create your own processes and systems for evaluating ICOs. You know, the spreadsheet is one of them. You know, by having a spreadsheet, that is a process in itself, because for you to analyze whether you're going to invest, you should be really cross-referencing that against the metrics that you've put in your spreadsheet. Okay. Now, the other point is successful ICO investing requires research, research, and more research. This is so true. So I would necessarily say that the spreadsheet is the first step of me researching, because by using my spreadsheet, I'm able to find out what the soft cap is, what the hard cap is, what the token supplying amount will be. How many tokens will there be in circulation, basically? And then I'm reviewing the team. And then in the team, I'm looking at all of the LinkedIn profiles. And then really, you know, if I'm going to go in with a bigger amount, I will then research the individuals in the team as well, and maybe just look in detail to make sure that they have worked there as well. And then also, you know, you really want to look at the caliber of community as well, because sometimes when you join lots of Telegram or Discoin groups for these ICOs who are having their main sale or crowd sale, you'll find that their membership numbers are inflated. And you find out, oh, it's because they're doing airdrops or they're doing bounties. Excuse me, I meant bounties, not airdrops. But yeah, they're doing things like bounties. And because of the bounties, they've got so many people joining up that aren't necessarily there who are going to be serious investors. It's just a lot of noise and a lot of hot air. So I would say, you know, stay away from that. You really want to be questioning things. You know, you want to question the legitimacy of some of the claims that they're making. Maybe see if you can investigate some of the partnerships as well. So the more research you do, you are going to be better equipped. And unfortunately, just watching a video by myself or any other YouTuber is really not enough for you to be basing your investment in. Now, the other point I wanted to make is that earliest investors are rewarded best, and that is so true. You know, how many times have we heard of people getting in at a private sale and having like an 80% bonus off the tokens? Or perhaps they got in at the pre-sale and then they got like a 50% bonus. That is so true. So the earlier you do your research before the ICO of the company, you know, you will be knowledgeable and you would have a confident feeling. If your knowledge, your due diligence, your own research has said, oh, this is still a go, it still looks like a good project. Or if you do your research and then you find negatives about the project, but you're comfortable with it, then, you know, you still have the ability, if you have enough capital or if you can bring value to that ICO, you have the ability to be able to get in early. And then the earlier that you invest into the crypto project, into the ICO, then the better you will be compensated and awarded. However, there is a caveat to that point, because if you get into a project early, that means that your cryptocurrency, your Ethereum or your Bitcoin or whatever you've invested with, is going to be tied up for longer. So just bear that in mind, okay? And another thing is leverage your network. So in the previous step, I said that you can find out about ICOs by your network, by networking, by, you know, rubbing shoulders with those who are in the space who might be where you want to be. Now, if you're able to leverage them, you might find out that they have allocations. Basically, an allocation is sort of like a slice. So for example, if we find out that the ICO I was talking about, Turnio, if we find out that me, Brother Crypt, I approached Turnio and said, "Hi Turnio, really like what you're doing. I'm an influencer. I'd like to do a piece about you. I have a community. And if you come onto my platform, if you answer all of my questions, if you do an AMA, ask me anything, and maybe you can give me an allocation of, let's say, $200,000. Basically, that will mean that I have a slice, which I'm able to fill. So out of that $200,000, I might invest $50,000, and then I might ask the rest of my network or my audience if they want to invest. So basically, that's an ICO allocation. And if you leverage your network, you might find out that other people are in this space. Okay, so therefore, if you're able to leverage your network, if you're able to find out that other people have ICO allocations, then perhaps you can invest into their pools and so forth. So I think we're wrapping up. But another thing that I wanted to talk about finally is ICO pools and ICO allocations. So previously, in the last point on the last page, I did say that you can network, you can meet other people that have ICO allocations as well. Basically, another way that you can do that is by joining a pool. So a pool is just a group of ICO investors who want to get in at the private sale, or perhaps pre-sale, who want to mainly get in before the main sale, because they can't afford individually $200,000 or maybe even $25,000. What usually happens is the ICO project, they will give one person an allocation, and then that one person, it's their duty to fill it within their network. And usually this is called a pool. Now, before I go on further, please bear in mind that you blindly investing into any pool exposes you to risk. Even if you do meet somebody that you can match a face to, there is potential for risk here, because you are not necessarily giving your Ethereum or your Bitcoin straight to the ICO investor, as you may have done, or how you might do in a main sale. By you joining a pool, what you're doing is you are giving your Bitcoin to person B. So you are person A, you're giving it to person B, who might be the pool manager, and then the pool manager is giving it to person B. So you here as A, you are 2 steps removed, okay? And this exposes you to a sort of counterparty risk, because you're dependent upon somebody else saying that they'll do what they will do for you to now get your coins. And this is where a lot of scams happen. If you research, millions and millions have been lost from ICO pools. So it's about choosing, who you go into a pool with, okay? And then at the same time, there's many rewards. There's many rewards to investing into ICO pools. Some of the rewards are you get into a lot of the projects that are highly anticipated or that have a lot of hype. If you get into it with a pool, you get in, so you don't have to go through the traditional main sale or crowd sale. And therefore, usually if you invest in a pool, you'll also get an incentive. Like I said earlier, if you are going into a pool, your resources, your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, will be held up before the main sale. So usually if you're in a pool or somebody's ICO allocation, you might be your Bitcoin or your Ethereum might be held up for an extra 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe even 2 months. But yeah, just rest assured that it will be held up. And then another thing to bear is that after the ICO, sometimes because you have got bonuses and you've got your coins at the cheapest price, you might be committed, or the pool may be committed to a lockup period. Okay, so that's just something to be aware of. So bear in mind, as I said earlier, that there are lots of scams. Be careful of scams. I recently joined, or for the last few weeks, I've been using a few pools, and unfortunately, I'm not going to mention them here. Maybe later I might share them with you, or I might be looking to explore ways that I can pool with other people here. But right now, I came across a pool, and you can also come across pools. But like I said, one advice I would give you when it comes to pools is, you can find lots of them online. Some of them have Discord groups, some of them, have Telegram groups. What I would say though is do your due diligence and perhaps, join a pool for at least 2 months, frequently gauge the conversation and find out how others feel. Are there bots? Does it look like the frequency of communication is artificial, or is it legitimate? Because when it comes down to money, there are so many people that are plotting to depart you from your hard-earned Bitcoin or your Ethereum. So scammers have elaborate ways. They might artificially inflate a group. So the best thing for you to do is just be a part of that group. Just be quiet and monitor and observe, until you find one that's good for you. And then, mitigate your risk. Do that by perhaps doing a small investment initially, like smaller than you would, just to be able to test the waters, and then make sure that your investment comes back to you in the form of new tokens that you recently invested in. Okay, but yeah, definitely be careful. But I think in this way, pools are definitely a way to go, or finding someone who can give you, who can share their ICO allocation with you. Okay, so in terms of the main content of what I wanted to chat to you about, that's it, guys. I hope you found this helpful. I spent a little bit of time to compile it, and I think it's on a sort of basic to intermediate level. I really want to dive deeper into ICOs, but if you think this has helped you, then please let me know. If you send me some love, some feedback, some likes, some comments, and I know that this is helping you, I'll be more than happy to compile another sort of more intermediate to advanced tips and tricks that I've learned for ICOs. Okay, so yeah, that's all really for today. Oh yeah, that's almost all for today. But just before we go, I just wanted to share 2 articles with you. The first is Lithuanian government ICO should be regulated. Okay, and I think we are gonna go down that line of regulation at some point. But right now we're not. And I think now is the perfect time, because if there are regulation, I think that's going to diminish the profits. And in my opinion, I think that ICO profits are diminishing anyway. As we get more and more saturated with there being more and more ICOs, I think it's going to be harder to see so many hundred to thousand or 10,000 or 100,000 X's. I think that's going to be harder because so many ICOs pop up every day right now. So literally the market is flooded with ICOs. That's just my opinion. But moving on, this final piece, Apple publishes revised cryptocurrency ICO guidelines. Okay, Apple has revealed its revised guidelines in a dedicated section of iOS and Mac app centered on the cryptocurrency space. Okay. So, where is it? Let's just check for ICOs. ICO norms. All right. In sticking with the original mandate, only mainstream banks and similar financial institutions will be allowed to develop and publish apps enabling crypto futures trading and initial coin offering, said Apple. Wow, that's big news. So basically, Apple have recognized ICOs, but they're saying you can only do that shit on our platform if you're a financially regulated institution, basically, or if you're a mainstream bank. This is what they're saying. So I definitely think some form of regulation is coming. Whether it will be this year or next year, I don't know. But, I think this is big news because Apple have recognized that ICOs are a way of raising money. Perhaps many developers have sneakily tried to do it on their platform but been turned away. However, now it's recognized. So really, we're just waiting for disruption. Okay, guys. So I hope, yes, things have been helpful to you. Like I said, if you have found this helpful, please, like it, share it, and leave a comment. Okay? Until the next Brother Crypt video, take care. Peace.